Australian Outback and a million feral camel are not really getting on very well these days. Thousands of the two main species of Australian feral camel, mostly dromedaries, but also some Bactrian, were imported into Australia during the 19th century for transport and construction as part of the colonisation of the central and western parts of Australia. As of 2009, the feral population numbered about 1 million, with a doubling time of about 9 years. Although their impact on the environment is not as severe as some other pests introduced into Australia, camels ingest more than 80% of the plant species available. Degradation of the environment occurs when the densities exceed 2 animals per square kilometre, which is presently the case for much of their range in the Northern Territory. Here's one of the breeders on Beltana after birthing a calf, with 2 station hands helping out. This is an example of the more common breed, Camels dromedarius, the dominant species of the Australian feral camel. This photo was taken in 1929. When the camel trains were broken up in the 1930s, the camels were turned loose into the Australian outback where they thrive. There are now about 1 million feral camels, which are causing a lot of damage to fences and stock watering points. It has been estimated that the camel population can double itself every 9 years. Marie was originally called Hergot Spring, the name being changed in 1918 due to anti-German feelings after the First World War. The Northern Railway from Adelaide reached the town in 1883 and Marie became a major railhead for the cattle industry. The railway was then continued north from the town to Alice Springs and was completed in 1929 solely by the camel trains, carting equipment and supplies from Marie. The camel handlers were mostly Afghans, specially brought to Australia for their expertise in handling the animals, and the train that travels the route today is named the Gan in their honour, even though the route today is totally different from the original. There were enough camels to make up 2 camel trains, plus spares. Usually one train was returning empty to Marie and the other camel train fully laden, already on the road heading north towards Unadilla. The cameleers are here loading the camel train at Marie for the trip to the head of the rail workings. Here's the camel train heading north from Marie to the head of the line with more sleepers, rails, fish plates, spikes, nuts and bolts, with a new railway to the Alice. Look at the loads these animals are carting. At least 6 sleepers balanced by a crate of iron fish plates and spikes, barrels of water and rations, lengths of rail balanced by more hardware. Camel trains played a major role in the opening up of the centre of Australia. Until the railway was finished, no major heavy machinery, bulk fuel, building supplies or foodstuffs could be brought in. The railway was finished in 1930 and it wasn't until 1934 that the first diesel-powered road train made the trip to the Alice. Once the railway was completed, the government road train began operating. The camel had finished his main job and was turned loose in the Australian outback. The camel train returning to Marie from Unadilla stops at the Coward Springs Hotel for a barely cool beer. Behind the hotel are the actual springs, locally known as the Bubbler, where a beautifully clear pool of fresh water has this huge bubble of water breaking the surface. The pool is some 20 to 30 feet in diameter and over 7 feet deep in the middle, or it used to be. Now it's been enclosed and is nowhere near as interesting. This photo was taken from where the railway tracks were, and when the old steam Gan stopped for water, the passengers would race over to the springs for a dip. Thinking to cash in on the Bubbler, the hotelier began building a block of units alongside the pub. They were never finished, and then the railway was moved several hundred kilometres west, and the camel trains had long since gone. There were no more people coming round. After the railway line to the Alice was completed, there wasn't a lot of work for camel trains, especially after 1934 when the diesel-powered government road train belatedly arrived on the scene. Apart from an occasional job, such as the camel train hired by the Central Australian Gold Exploration Company to set up a base at Bilba, 120 mile west of Alice Springs, for the purpose of finding Lassiter's gold reef, there wasn't much call for them, so most of the animals were just turned loose in the Great Australian Desert where they thrive. A few were kept for private use, such as this one being driven by the Reverend Kramer of the Australian Inland Mission and his off-sider Dick Gillen. They're checking out the first petrol bowser in Alice Springs at Phil Windle's garage in Todd Street. The Camels are having a bit of a laugh at the new fuel bowser in the Alice. They didn't need any more than a belly full of Spinifex, and that was free. Maybe today, with hundreds and thousands of camels roaming the Australian Outback and the price of petrol, we should all be driving around in camel carts. Camels in the Aussie Outback is a paperback book of 26 pages, black and white on white paper, sized 8 by 10 inches, with 19 large, high-resolution photographs taken between 1928 and